In this video, we're discussing the fear of the trial of Jesus. We're standing on the grounds of St. Peter in Gallicantu, which remembers Jesus' trial at Caiaphas' house. Behind me is a church from the 1930s, built upon Byzantine church ruins and even on some first century archaeology. This area was inside the city at the time of Jesus, even though now it lies slightly to the south of the old city walls. We come here on every pilgrimage course, and it's a favorite site of many of our pilgrims as we walk them slowly through the story that takes place here. The first level of the church has a big mural that remembers Jesus in front of the high priests. We descend to another level where we focus a little bit on Peter. And then there's archaeology at the very bottom that helps us remember that on this night between the trial with the Sanhedrin and the trial before Pilate, Jesus was held in custody. We talked at the upper room how this one place can have many stories, but sometimes we have one story in which many things are happening at the same time. And these stories give us different types of emotions. While Jesus is silent before the high priest, and we can imagine, did he experience his own sense of fear and trepidation? We follow his story all the way down to what's called here the pit. And the emotion truly is one of desolation. All decisions have been made, and he's about to be taken to Pilate the next day. It's a sight, to be honest, where we often see pilgrims in tears as they're reading passages from the Psalms talking about being in the pit and the sense of a lack of hope. Is there fear still within us when we come to the sense of desperation in our lives? As for Peter, we do feel more tangibly the fear that's going on. He had the courage, he had the curiosity, he had the commitment even to follow Jesus from Gethsemane, which is around to our left here in the Jehoshaphat Valley, up to this upper hill, or the western hill, Mount Zion, where we would believe that the historic Caiaphas had his house. And as Peter is following Jesus, he has fear as he is eventually asked these questions of denial. When we come as pilgrims at St. George's, we have choices of how we remember the stories, but often we focus on Peter as this human journey following in the footsteps of Jesus, and we sense his emotions. And here he goes from all the events of this week to asking this question whether he knew Jesus. As we leave this site as pilgrims, as I said, we have mixed emotions. Some of us are remembering Jesus held overnight. We too are asking the questions about our relationship with Jesus. Like any pilgrimage site, there's distractions here. There's beautiful gardens. There's a gift shop and even a place to get a drink. But that's part of the juxtapositions and the paradoxes of pilgrimage. A 1930s French church which feels and tone different than some of the Italian Franciscan churches that we see elsewhere. I think sometimes perhaps people like this church just because it's a sense of surprise. It just feels slightly different here. But it's one where the emotions and the stories interweave and layer upon one upon the other. It's one story with many emotions, and many things are happening both in the life of our Savior Jesus, hours before he will be crucified on the cross, and also in the life of the Apostle Peter, who will eventually come to be the bishop of the church.
A reliable legal system is the bedrock of any society, community, nation, and its guarantee of justice for everybody. And when that system itself fails, so much else crumbles around it. When governments and authorities use the legal system to pursue their own ends, then ordinary people are the casualties, and society begins to break down because those things which need to be reliable are the opposite. And this church, built over what might be the house of Caiaphas the high priest, engages with all of that idea of the need for and the failure of systems of justice. And Jesus perhaps was held here in cells, we don't know. But the gospel stories look at all of these issues of the breakdown of the instruments of what should be a good and reliable society with integrity. And the story of Jesus is bound up in those failures, so that we see the way in which corrupt political and religious authorities end up using the system for their own corrupt purposes. And it makes us reflect upon our own societies and upon this land and the ways in which justice systems can fail and the damage that is done. Jesus' trial in front of Caiaphas, or his hearing in front of Caiaphas, is commemorated, but also here in this beautiful and dynamic bronze statue, the flack or the fallout of that failure also is captured in St. Peter's denial. The cock on the top of the pillar reminds us of that other bit of the story, and Jesus' hands outstretched, his denial of Jesus. Perhaps the emotional low point of the story from the disciples' point of view. And there are so many reasons why the gospel writers might have missed out these details, because St. Peter and the other disciples are portrayed in such an unflattering light of their complete failure to have courage and to stand with Jesus in his great moment of trial and trauma. But the gospel writers don't flinch in telling these bits of the story, because what Peter does not know, sitting here, denying that he knows Jesus, while he's trying to hide in plain sight, what he does not know is that the story does not end here, and it does not end in Jesus' death, but there's more yet to come. And in one of the chapels in the church, there is an icon of Peter's reinstatement by Jesus after he asks, "Do you love me, Peter?" And Peter, with increasing vehemence, tries to reassure him, "Yes, I do, Lord, you know I do." And Peter and Jesus restores Peter. So the gospel writers don't look away from human failing, human weakness. They engage with it and show the ways in which, through the love of God in Jesus Christ, those failures are redeemed and reconciliation can be established. But we are challenged for courage and to stand like Jesus, if the grace of God can be sufficient within us, to stand against injustice and to stand against the failure of authorities to do their God-given task. And while here in this land we see so many people who suffer at the hands of unjust powers, and the needs of the community of Palestinians to feel that their cause is heard and that they will get a fair hearing, we see that failure over and over again. And it's not only here, around the world, when political authority is abused to penalise the weak and the vulnerable. What will the rest of us do? Can we take courage from Jesus? Can we take courage from Peter and the other disciples who found their courage later with the risen Christ and all that they were able to achieve afterwards? In times of suffering, there is fear. And in the face of fear, we must have courage. We sing the songs of freedom out of the experience of suffering and fear. And may God give us the song to sing and give us the strength to sing it.